Thanks also to Mr. Wesley Advocate, thank you, for his generous support of our district. Prepping for testing, thanks to Ms. Nieves for providing posts for the district website and Facebook pages. The board member meet and greets. Ms. Nieves will do a doodle poll to ascertain the availability of board members. Board members, if you haven't responded to that, please do so. Suggest having them at schools 1 to 4 as they represent the 4 wards of Winslow Township. Scheduled before our board retreat in August, possibly in July. Provide snacks and ask for action at tonight's meeting, which we did. I did reach out to Mr. Bobby Harris about discussing the Education Foundation, and we are trying to schedule a meeting. The Google Analytics, the website data, I believe it was Mr. Thomas who had asked, what are we going to do with it? And the parents and community members are now going to it for information, so we need a better solution. Miscellaneous, do we have a press release person? This comes out of the superintendent's office. And athletics, Mr. Thomas noted that the football team will be playing some of the top teams this fall, and we should find ways to highlight them. The meeting ended at 3:31, and was submitted by myself.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moore. I have just one question with regards to number 6.
I can't hear you, Mr. Smith.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just have one question with regards to number 6. On the report, board member meet and greet, provide snacks. Are we going to provide snacks? And
I'm pretty sure Dr. Pote said we would.
For the town hall meeting?
No, I think this is for the meet and
For the
greet.
meet and greets.
I'm not sure how that's going to happen.
That's my question.
It may have been confused. I may have been confused. It may have been for the town hall meeting.
Oh,
So
yes.
I can take that off of there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think. And may I just comment on one area, Mrs. Moore, in reference to the school district's participation in the Juneteenth activities. I have been in communication with Mrs. McClendon in reference to the school district's participation. Right now, we have artwork that will be provided from the middle school and the upper elementary schools. There's a possibility we may get some artwork from the high school. She had asked for school 2 and school 6 to participate by presenting their presentations that they did at the board meetings during those evenings, but at that point, the school year will be over and the teachers and the students weren't available to participate in that particular area because at that point, the teachers had other plans right at the end of school, plus that's the first holiday. She had also asked for the band and the band front to participate, but the same situation occurred. School's over and the staff were trying to get on vacation, young people were trying to get on vacation, and they didn't have enough students to have a full band or band front in order to accommodate those requests. So at this point, we will provide as much artwork as we did last year as possible from various grades. But at this point, that is the extent of it. She did say there were some other essay kinds of things that they wanted to pursue, but at this point, I have not heard from her. All right?
This is for Juneteenth now?
This is for Juneteenth, yes.
Ms. Moore, for the Juneteenth, the board will have a table, correct?
Well, I guess we need to sign up for that, so
Okay, so,
I'll talk to you more.
okay, good. Oh, good evening. Anyway, one question, number 9, miscellaneous, do we have a press release person? That's a question coming from the marketing committee?
So it was
that
something
a
that was,
question?
it was something that was discussed. I think it was Mr. Thomas had asked about press releases for the athletics. So maybe he can.
My question was, is there a press release person that we usually have, that we in contact with? Because it may be a possible chance that when something good happened and we want to get it out, do we have a relationship with a specific press release person? I asked Mr. Dion Davis to see if he can retrieve that. He told me he would speak to the superintendent. I then got a message that the superintendent has some that he's familiar with, and that's where we ended up. We just wanted to have them in place in case we need to release some information, some good information that I feel like should be released, that we have a relationship with a press release person.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Yeah, I have a question for number 6, if I may.
Yes, Mr.
I just
Thomas.
want to know what's the goal of the meet and greet?
Ms. Nieves?
Yeah, I'll take that, that's fine. So like we discussed at the last meeting, the goal is to get community input in regards to, what we're doing well, what can be improved upon prior to our board retreat, so we can incorporate that information into the district goals.
Any further questions, Mr. Thomas? Okay.
May I ask a question, Madam President?
Yes.
Ms. Moore, on item 7, our office has frequently gotten involved with assisting the various PTAs, the Education Foundation, volunteering our time to help them with their nonprofit corporate status. So if you need any information relative to their status currently, since I know I think they've been inactive for a period of time.
For a while, from what I understand.
Yeah, I can look up when they were last active. I can tell you what's needed. And usually you have to pay an annual fee. It's not a lot. Might add up to a couple of $100 if it was for 10 years. But I can tell you how much that is to get it activated, where that should be sent, the appropriate form to get it reconstituted and up and running, and just double check and order the corporate papers to make everything is in order. So if there's anything you need in that regard, we've been helpful with that in the past, and I'd be more than happy to do that again.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, also, Ms. Moore, if I recall, and Ms. Peterson, you can help me with this. When we did, I think for that 1 year, work with an education committee, I believe there was an account with something like $200 or $300 left. I'm not sure, but I just thought I'd pass that on to you.
Okay,
And you can check with Mr. Harris.
all right, thank you.
Any further questions on our marketing committee report? Okay, moving now. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Moving now to our athletic committee. Any report from our athletic committee?
No report from the athletic committee. Our meeting is May 18th at 5 p.m. It
Okay,
works for the committee.
thank you, Ms. Martin. With regards to the policy committee meeting, the policy committee met via WebEx on May 4th, 2023 at 5:45 p.m. Present was board member Ms. Debbie Esposito, board member Ms. Rebecca Nieves, board member Mr. Joe Thomas, Dr. Poteet, intended, and Dr. Carcamo, assistant superintendent, and myself, Cheryl Pitts. The policy committee again held a virtual meeting on May 4th, 2023 at 5:15 p.m. to review changes and recommendations to policies and regulations to present for tonight a first reading here, May 10th, 2023. The policies and regulations reviewed were, and I'll do this quickly, I believe everyone does have a copy of this, but for the sake of our minutes, policies that were reviewed: policy number 0144, board member orientation and training; policy number 2520, instructional supplies; policy number 3217, use of corporal punishment, that was revised; policy 4217, use of corporal punishment, that's new; policy 5305, health services personnel; policy 5308, student health records; policy 5310, health services; policy 6112, reimbursement of federal and other grant expenditures; policy 6115.04, federal funds, duplication of benefits, that was new; policy number 6311, contract for goods or services funded by federal grants; policy number 7440, school district security; and policy number 9140, citizen advisory committee, which was revised it was discussed and reviewed that there is no legal requirement for this policy. However, the committee has recommended keeping it. The original policy addressed establishing a citizen advisory committee required for some federal and state funded programs. The policy has since been revised to allow the district to determine the responsibility of the committee. We also reviewed regulations. There were 4 of them. Regulation number 2520, instructional supplies. Regulation number 5308, student health records. Regulation 5310, health services. And regulation number 6115.01, federal award funds, internal controls, allowability of costs. The policies that were abolished, policy number 9100, public relations. The regulation that was abolished was regulation number 9140, the Citizens Advisory Committee. All policies and regulations were approved to be moved forward for this evening's first reading by the Board of Education. The meeting was adjourned at approximately 6:45 p.m. Any questions?
Yes, Madam President, you remember we had conversation, particularly policy 3217 and/or 4217, use of corporal punishment. At the very end, it stated that if a staff member is found guilty of violating this policy, he may, or he or she may, receive some sort of punishment. I don't have it in front of me, but I do recall the conversation. So I would like to ask Mr. Long, because I think Ms. Esposito asked us why, if someone is found guilty of violating the policy, why shouldn't it be will be dealt with as opposed to may be dealt with? So I said to Ms. Esposito in the group that I wasn't sure of the terminology. I think that's a legal question, and I wanted Mr. Long, if he would address that issue for us for clarification purposes. Thank you.
I'd be glad to, Dr. Poteet, and excellent question, Ms. Esposito. The actual language at the end of the policy says, any teaching staff member employed by the board found to have violated this policy may be subject to discipline by the board. And that's the end of the sentence. At the bottom of it, you'll notice, and frequently in most policies are enacted pursuant to what we call enabling legislation. And in this case, you'll see underneath that, in the policy itself, Dr. Poteet was kind enough to give me a heads up. So this isn't, I don't want to brag and say this is off the top of my head. I did do a little sneak and cheat here, Doc, on my phone and look through some things so I could answer the question, frankly. But if you look at 18A, colon 6-1, that's the state statute that precludes corporal punishment. So while it's precluded and it's a violation of the policy, you could be guilty of a form of corporal punishment, but the statute and our regulation, and this is a little bit of legalese and requires a jump and a little bit of trust, sets up 4 affirmative defenses that you may have. So you may violate the policy, but you have certain affirmative defenses that you can raise that protect you. For instance, to quell a disturbance threatening physical injury to others, to obtain possession of a weapon or other object upon the person within the control of the pupil, for the purpose of self-defense, for the protection of persons or properties. So typically, when you look at any sort of penalty provision, either like the Winslow local ordinances or state statutes with criminal judges, it says the penalties to be imposed may include up to and including, it's always may, because we always presume innocent. We know that if they violate and there's no affirmative defense, it's going to be a shall. The board's going to have that discretion, and a person's entitled to due process in a hearing. If it said shall, it would presume to some extent that it was already committed. So traditionally, in these types of penalty provisions where it talks about be subject to discipline, it frequently says may rather than shall, because there may be circumstances, there could have been some form of punishment, but perhaps there's a psychological defense. Someone was not of the appropriate state of mind to which they, technically they violated it, but if they were under some type of stressful situation which caused them to have a breakdown or something along those lines, this gives the board some discretion to exercise its wisdom and the administration some discretion in exercising its wisdom and making findings under this policy. Shall sort of takes that away from you a little bit. So typically we do see may in these types of policies, criminal statutes, and things of that nature. It doesn't make it any less enforceable. It doesn't weaken it. It takes into consideration due process rights. And I can tell you, knowing the administration and understanding this board, that if there was an unjustifiable event without affirmative defense or some medical reason in which caused a person to act a certain way, that you can put may or shall, that person's going to be found to have violated this policy and be appropriately disciplined. And there's only certain ways we can discipline a teacher. We can move for tenure charges, which in an event like this would probably be the result. Increment withholding. There's no suspension with pay. Usually it's an administrative suspension without pay, pending a hearing, or tenure charges. But you can only stop paying a particular employee or certified teacher or other employee if they've been indicted under a criminal statute or actual tenure charges have been brought against that employee. So that's sort of the overall view of the way we look at it under the law, the way the statute is set up. And all these policies are pretty much dictated and come right out of Title 18A, which is the educational law. So hopefully that somewhat addresses your question.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Long.
You're welcome.
So that concludes our committee reports, board members. So at this time, I'm sorry,
There is one other report.
the citizen advisory?
Yes.
Sorry, I thought I had that checked. Citizens advisory report, Ms. Martin?
Yes, Ms. Claude is going to do that.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I can't even talk. The Citizens Advisory Board met on May 4th, 2023. The meeting began at 7:07 p.m. with the Pledge of Allegiance. Board members present were Rita Martin and Debbie Esposito. Community members included John Shaw, Carolyn Carter, Tish Pomerantz, Marcy Tomasello, Christy Razzulli, Greg Wake, and Rosemary Hoffman. Agenda: the results of the school climate presentation of the board education proposal, and we talked about the student synopsis proposal. Rita Martin presented information about the recommendation for the school climate survey, which was presented at the April 26th Board of Education meeting by the CAC co-chairs, Christy Razzulli and Wanda Glaude. This survey compiled and administrated by Rutgers University is offered free to New Jersey School District through the Department of Education. It allows students, staff, administrators, and parents opportunity to comment on various aspects of the school climate. A lead administrator must request information. Ms. Martin notified the CAC that the recommendation for the survey has been sent to the Education Committee of the Board of Education. This committee meets once a month with Dr. Koppelmo, and she is the chairperson. Other members include Rita Martin, Judy Peterson, and Kelly Thomas. This committee issued a report once a month. Ms. Martin recalled that there has been a similar climate survey recommended to the Board of Education in 2018, but the recommendation was rejected. The general contention of the CAC was that answering survey questions would lead to a district in a positive direction. Rita Martin reported that she is working with the technology department to get a general email for the CAC, so members' personal emails will not be included on the Board of Education website or on a brochure explaining the CAC. Marcy Tomasello reported that she updated the CAC brochure to get it ready for the middle school community night on May 11th. The committee members present reviewed the brochure and approved the contents. The CAC is trying to locate the banner which covers the CAC table at the community events. It was brought to the former chairperson, April Hughes, may have it, Marcy will contact. The Citizens Advisory Council will have a table at the middle school community event on May 11th. Setup time is at 5:30 for those who are attending. The meeting was then turned over to the agenda that had been prepared by the community members. It was decided that to the table, the discussion about the student synopsis, since the member who proposed the format of the synopsis was still not in attendance. Christy Renzulli reiterated that Rutgers school climate would be a positive force in improving the image of the district, since the area it measures included all and many concerns and issues brought by the community members to the CAC members. Marcy Tomasello expressed her concerns about being unable to see and hear the comments of many of the Board of Education members during the meetings because of audio and visual problems. Only Dr. Poteet and Mrs. Pitt's comments are clearly heard. They are also members, not only members who that are not clearly visible. The camera angle provides a view of the back of the heads of the other board members, and they cannot be heard clearly. Some suggestions were presented. Could a camera be set up to zoom in on the speaker, and could the recording camera and the mics be set up differently? It was felt that with this improvement in the meetings, that our live stream would be better audio and visual. At home participation and might improve. Rita Martin will speak to the tech department about the situation. An upgrade in equipment was previously investigated, but the cost of the new equipment was prohibitive. Greg Wake opened a discussion on changing the high school scheduling to form a block scheduling, which is being used in several districts surrounding Winslow. The scheduling would center around a lunch period of about an hour in which every student in the high school would have lunch. Something similar is done at breakfast when the kiosks are set up and all the students go to breakfast. During this time, except for the gym teachers who will be on lunch duty, every teacher will be available to the students. Students could go to club meetings, try out different sports, seek tutoring or mentoring, or just hang out with a favorite teacher. Academics will follow up an A, B, C, D type of scheduling with longer class periods. This change could appeal to students' maturity and responsibility. Mr. Wake said he would take responsibility for scheduling along with another teacher. It was decided to discuss this again at our June 1st meeting. The meeting ended at 8:10 p.m. and our next meeting will be June 1st at 7 p.m. Respectfully, CAC members.
Hold on, Ms. Gordon, now, very comprehensive report, but I'd like to focus on what were the recommendations? What recommendations?
No recommendations.
No recommendations?
At this time.
At this time.
Just a conversation.
I see, thank you.
Yes, yes.
Dr. Poteet, I have a question about one of the items that one of the CAC members talked about, a block scheduling. Are you
Yes,
familiar
I'm
with that?
familiar, yes, I am familiar with block scheduling. However, I think it would take some serious dialogue between the administration staff before we move in that direction. I mean, there are some other kinds of things that need to be worked out before we do a schedule such as that, because it would definitely have to be tight, because we don't want people just wandering, because there'll be too many young people who just will not go on their own to an scheduled situation without us having to deal with other issues with people wandering. So we will take it under advisement, but I know just what we're dealing with right now, it would take some serious planning in order for something like that to happen at the high school. So we're not in a position where I would say, oh, yes, we can move forward. It definitely would take some planning in order for us to do that. But I am well familiar with block schedule.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cote.
Madam President,
Yes, Ms.
just a great report. However, we do have a fourth member on the committee, and that is Mrs. Moore. So you mentioned three, and the chair is Julie Peterson. Dr. Quackabo is our administrative liaison.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question too, Madam President.
Yes. Yes.
With the climate survey, who gets to take the survey?
It's for staff, the staff, parents, and the children, the students.
Okay.
Good.
Ms. Martin, you had a question? No, okay, so we're good? All right, board members are still on page 2 here. We're moving to the superintendent's report. However, before I move forward and ask for motions to approve these reports, I just want to make sure that what we're going to be voting on is correct, because there have been some corrections now. As we all know, we usually get our agendas on Friday. And then also when we come in on Wednesday, we have another copy of the agenda, and also that agenda is placed on the website. But now for clarification and continuity, I've been advised that there are some changes that we need to make before I ask for a motion. So therefore, there's just a few. Page 8, I draw your attention to page 8 on our agenda. Page 8 on our agenda, number 14. That first block, where it shows regular education students. If we go down to grades 9, the line that says 9 through 12 students, and we move over to the column that says number of students, that says 9 to 12, that should be 25. Are we okay with that? All right. The second change, we move to page 11. We move to page 11, number 18. Number 18, under purchase, state contract vendor. That particular section here, I'm just going to add another account number, and it should be 20-020-200-600.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes. I'll repeat that, sure. That account number, that second account number is 20-020-200-600.
What was that? Yes.
Item number 18, the
Yeah.
first one says purchases state contract,
Right.
and if you read down, it says items charged to account number 11-000-262-610.
Yes.
And what I just read just gets added to that.
Oh.
Okay? All right, good. Now, moving now to page 13. Page 13, item 1, where it says auditor. And we look down where it says Bowman and Company, move across where it says associates. That number there, I believe, is 108, but we should change that to 120.
What I
Okay,
have is clarified, it says 120.
okay, you may have it. Again,
It is correct.
if it's corrected on there, that's
Yes,
fine. I just want
yes.
to make absolutely sure this next one may
Yes.
also be corrected on page 14, number 3.
Yeah, and the actual number was also on, from the last one you gave, was
Right.
also there, Mrs. Hyde.
Okay,
So
good.
some of these changes might be on the agenda we received this evening.
Right, exactly. Now, page number 14. Number 3, engineer, you can see under vendor name, there's a list of vendors, and what should have been added is another vendor. The vendor is EI Associates.
They are there.
They are there? Okay, then those are the changes that should appear on our agenda. So at this time, we can go forward, and I'm asking for a motion to approve the superintendent's report as it begins the middle of page 2 and continues through to the bottom of page 12 with any additions or corrections.
It's at the bottom of page 5, but 6 is the beginning of the board, business administrative board secretary.
Okay, and mine is different. The superintendent's report, I'm sorry, superintendent's report, I flipped too quickly. At the end of page 5, so let me repeat that for clarification. I'm asking for a motion to approve the superintendent's report as it appears at the bottom of page 2 and continues through to the bottom of page 5.
Julie Peterson, move for approval of the superintendent's report, item A and B. The superintendent recommends approval of the following items found on page 2 through 5.
Ms. Martin, second.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Dredden?
Yes.
Ms. Esposito?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Nieves?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes,
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
The motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Boyle. Moving now, board members, on at the top of page 6, I'm asking for a motion to approve the business administrator board secretary's report as it begins at the top of page 6 and continues through to the bottom of page 12. Is there a motion?
Julie Peterson moves for approval of the business administrative board secretary's recommendation of approval for the following items found A and B found on page 6 through 12 with the modifications as indicated earlier.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Dredden?
Yes.
Ms. Esposito?
Yes, except for like staying for number 21.
Ms. Martin?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Nieves?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes,
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
The motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Board members, now we're moving to the continuation of the Business Administrative Board Secretary's report. At this time, we have about at least 5 vendors that we're going to take individually and ask for your approval to renew or to interview. We're going to start with number 1, page 13, the auditor.
Julie Peterson moved for approval of auditor as school auditor, April 26, 2023, Bowman and Company LLP.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Are we going to appoint or are we going to review, interview?
Approved for
Appoint.
appointment. I'll change the motion so it's clear. Julie Peterson moves for approval of the auditor to be named Bowman and Company LLP for the 2023-2024 year.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Dredden?
Yes.
Ms. Esposito?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Nieves?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes,
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Boyle. Moving now, board members, to number 2, solicitor. Ms. Peterson?
Julie Peterson moves for approval of the solicitor under item A, Wade, Long, Wood, and Long LLC for the 2023-2024 year.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Ms. Esposito?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Nieves?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes,
Motion has carried.
thank you. Moving now, board members. Number 3, engineer, Ms. Peterson.
Julie Peterson moves for interview with the suggestion from our board administrator / business administrator, board secretary, comments, to interview all candidates listed. Five.
Ms. Peterson? We currently have consulting and municipal engineers. We've been very satisfied with their services as our engineer, and we would recommend reappointing without having to interview. If the board seems fit.
Okay, so you're pleased with it, okay. So now, because it wasn't a second, I can go back to my motion. Julie Peterson moves for approval of appointment as engineer, consultant, and municipal engineer, CME, for the 2023-2024 year.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Ms. Esposito?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Nieves?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes,
The motion has carried.
thank you, Ms. Fuller. Board members, up at the top of page 15, school physician for all grade levels. Ms. Peterson.
Julie Peterson moves for approval, Cape Regional Physicians Associates, for the 2023-2024 school year as the school physician for all grade levels of the Board of Education.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Ms. Esposito?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Nieves?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes,
The motion has carried.
thank you, Ms. Fuller. Moving now to our personnel report. At this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve our personnel report as it begins the middle of page 15 and continues through to the bottom of page 21. Is there a motion?
Julie Peterson moves for approval of the personnel report that the superintendent recommends approval of the following action items found on page 15 through the end of 21.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. Any further comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
That would be Ms. Esposito, yes.
Yeah, can you explain to me what are the stipends, the educational support service stipends for staff?
What page are you on, Ms.
I'm on
Esposito?
page 19.
Page 19, what number?
All of them, they all have.
All of them?
educational
Okay.
Support service stipends, I didn't know what that was.
I can address that discuss for you.
Yes, Ms. Pitts.
Those are all contractual, so these individuals, such as the nurses, child study team members,
Hold
et
on,
cetera.
Mr. Davis, could you go to the mic?
Absolutely.
This way.
Per the collective bargaining agreement with the union, those stipends are added to child study team members such as LDTC, social workers, et cetera, as well as some of our related services providers, the nurses, reading specialists. They all get a particular stipend that is added to their salary, and it is pensionable, et cetera. So those are all things that are part of the bargaining agreement. So that figures do change on a year-to-year basis, which is why they have to be approved every year. Stipends.
So it's not part of their regular salary,
It's in addition to.
in addition to the regular salary. Is it for any additional service or? is it-
Sometimes it could be tied to, let's say, extra testing and things that they may do, but it's a flat figure. So some individuals, if you know, some of them have different rates.
Right.
So it's, if they're here, like old tenure statute. So the first 3 years, it's a lesser amount. And then if you're here 3 years and after, you get the higher amount. Like it's half and then the full amount.
Okay. All right, so it's just a contractual addition.
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any further comments or questions? from
I
the
have a question,
personnel
I
report?
have a question for the personnel report.
Yes, Mr. Thomas?
How many positions do we have available? How many current positions we have, nutrition or resignation?
Vacancies.
Yeah, vacancies.
I don't have a number off the top of my head. I'd probably say maybe in the upper 20s, if not. Because we have been interviewing for those, there are people that are coming in, so that's why I don't have an accurate number, but I'd probably say maybe in the mid-20s.
Okay.
The majority is unfortunately being special ed. Yeah,
Without question.
Yeah.
We
so
have,
that's the bulk of them.
we have special education positions that we didn't fill last year that are still open this year. Special education personnel just aren't there. The certifications, of course, by the state are required. If you don't have those certifications, you can't be hired. So special education will continue and will continue to be our the biggest challenge that we're going to have moving forward. And I wanted to reiterate that tonight so you'll know that it's going to be tough for us to get more special education teachers.
I have one more question.
Yes, Ms.
I
Esposito?
noticed on page 18,
Page 18,
right?
what number?
Number 9.
Number
staff
9,
reassignment.
staff reassignment?
Right, that all of the reading development teachers for each of the lower elementary schools have been positioned as, regular classroom teachers. So who will be, how is that being, who's gonna be doing their job, the reading development specialists?
And I can answer that as well, Dr. Boutique. Those positions were grant funded. So that was some of the money that we had, which expired.
Okay,
So since we had the opening, we're moving them into permanent district funded positions. But those were short-term positions.
okay, and they were funded by the,
That was part of the extra money that we just extra money from the state.
all right, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Board members, personnel report, any further comments or questions? Thank you, hearing none. Oh, Mr. Long?
No,
Oh.
please, Mr. Davis.
Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Esposito,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Nieves,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes,
The motion has carried.
thank you, Ms. Coyle. Moving now, board members, I'm at the top of page 22, our addendum. I believe we certainly all had the opportunity to take a look at our pretty pink copies of our addendum. So therefore, at this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve the Business Administrative Board Secretary's report as it appears on our addendum for this evening's meeting, beginning on page 1, continuing over to the top of page 3. Is there a motion?
Julie Peterson moves for approval of the Business Administrative Board Secretary's report found on page 1 through 3.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. Will there be further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Esposito,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Nieves,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Moving now, board members, I'm asking for a motion to approve the personnel report as it appears on our addendum, beginning at page 3, continuing through to the bottom of page 4. Is there a motion?
Julie Peterson moves for approval, the personnel report that reflects the superintendent's recommendations for approval for the following actions found on page 3 through 4.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. Will there be further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Dredden,
Yes.
Ms. Esposito,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Nieves,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Moving now, board members, still on our addendum, I'm asking for a motion to approve the superintendent's report as it appears, begins at the bottom of page 4, continue through to the top of page 5. Is there a motion?
Julie Peterson moves for approval of the superintendent's report that cites recommendations approved for the following actions found on page 4 over to page 5.
Second, Ms. Martin?
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Dredden?
Yes.
Ms. Esposito?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Nieves?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
The motion has carried.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Board members, we're back on our regular agenda, top of page 22. Moving now to the Open Public Records Act. Ms. Boyle.
Madam President, we don't have any open public records act for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Moving now to informational items. Dr. Potteet.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board and community, I have a few information items. Most of them are pretty much updates, but the first one, the Winslow Township High School TV production students, along with their teacher, Mr. Norm Ingram, will be competing in the National Football League Films High School Film Festival today, which started at 7 o'clock. The link is on the Winslow Township High School's website, and I'm assuming by now they should have voted on a winner of that competition. So,
Dr. Potteet,
yes.
I've just been informed that they won first place. And that first place prize is $10,000.
Oh, good
And
news.
that student Terry Harris won the Rising Star Award.
Winslow's winning.
I would like to reiterate, and thank you, Mrs. Moore.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, thank you. That's the third one in a row.
Yes.
This particular production, hopefully we can put it on our website tomorrow. Excellent piece, excellent piece. We had an opportunity to view that presentation, I would say Thursday, Friday of last week. Excellent. And I think not only do the young people do a great job, I haven't seen one of their productions in the past 3 years that didn't bring you to tears. Truly, truly a magnificent piece. This one, Miss Morella and I agreed from the moment we saw it. If they didn't win this one, something is wrong, because this is one of the best I've seen. Seriously. Mr. Ingram and those young people do a fantastic job in presenting. They do everything, you know, they do directing, the editing, and the interviews, etc. But ladies and gentlemen, you really have to see this year's presentation. Excellent job, excellent job. So
What's
thank
the
you.
subject matter? Just curious. What are they?
We have a young man who's on the basketball team. I think he's from Nigeria. And in Nigeria, of course, he was in a situation where his parents didn't have a lot. It was a dangerous environment. He's about 6'6", 6'7", big kid, never played basketball a day in his life. His parents saved money to bring him to the United States. They ended up here in Sicklerville, and he talks about his life being dangerous, never playing basketball. They put him out there, and he progressed from the time he started over the past 2-3 months. And now he is doing extremely well. But I think it's his life's journey that's the story, and how, you know, difficult it was for him in a war-torn country and getting over here, and how he values education and how he values the opportunity of being here in Winslow and playing basketball. Tremendous piece.
Sounds like a piece for Good Morning America.
Well, I think we're up next.
Okay.
No, but it was excellent piece, truly an excellent piece, and we'll see if we can get that link up tomorrow
Excellent.
for the community to see. It's an excellent piece. Next school board meeting, ladies and gentlemen, of course, we have our Teacher of the Year celebration. This is Teacher Appreciation Week. And I know it is an absolute great opportunity to show our appreciation to the teachers. Been doing a fantastic job under the most difficult conditions and circumstances, very challenging, and our teachers have truly stepped up. Many of them taking covering 6 and 7 classes. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't do that. But I think it's an opportunity for us to say thank you. Our town hall meeting, which is already mentioned by our marketing committee chair, Mrs. Moore. We're hoping that we do have that problem of seating capacity here during that meeting. Of course, Dr. Aiva will be returning, and I think this room will give it an excellent presentation because we have an opportunity with the acoustics and with the opportunity for people to call in and ask questions. So we're looking forward to the town hall meeting. And of course, June the 7th, we have our traditional superintendent's awards where we honor our best and brightest students, upper elementary through high school. And then of course, at the high school, we acknowledge our valedictorian, our salutatorian, performing arts, female athletes, and male athletes of the year, community service award, performing arts award, and of course, we give an award to the community organization who's provided services to the district and the community over the years. So we're looking forward to our June 7th Superintendent's Award presentation. Madam President, members of the board, that concludes my information items for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Ortiz, thank you. Moving now, board members, to old business. Board members, would there be any old business that you would care to discuss at this time?
Mrs. Pitts, I just have one item.
Yes, Ms. Neely.
So Mrs. Moore touched on this during our marketing committee. I would just like to reiterate to the board members to fill out that doodle poll so we can get that meet and greet scheduled. And I can let Dr. Poteet know what dates we would need the school buildings.
Okay. Board members, Ms. Neely has spoken. Okay, all right. Any further old business at this time? Now, board members, I just have just one item for old business, and this is really getting old. Our board self-evaluation. Where are we going to go with this? Because we have to do it before the end of the year. You say we're required to do that, to evaluate the, to discuss rather, I'm sorry, this self-evaluation, and we've been putting it off for the last 3 board meetings. So, board members, I'd like to hear from you some suggestions as to what we can do, when can we set a date, because it is it's a 21-page evaluation. We just simply need to be able to report to NJSBA that we discussed it. But I know that there have been, over the past few board meetings, we do have to discuss it in public, and there have been some board meetings that were unexpectedly running long. So, board members, I'm open for suggestions. We have to do it. Can we be creative? Can we? Okay, I'm hearing crickets.
What are our options? I mean, you said we have to do it in a public board meeting, right?
Your options are this. I'm asking for options. I'm asking for suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, what are our parameters? Do we have to do it in a public meeting? Right?
We have to do it at a public meeting. It must be done in public.
Then we may need to schedule another meeting. I mean, a
So-
separate meeting, because during these meetings, I don't see where we have the time.
Madam President, I thought we were gonna do it tonight.
That's what I said.
Well, yeah, are you prepared to, because I have not heard whether either way, are you prepared to do it tonight? Because we have, okay, that's fine, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it now.
Do we have copies of it? I mean,
Everyone should have a copy.
I made sure that we have copies.
Mhm.
I don't have a copy.
I have
And so, board members, now what as you know, it is a 21-page document, and we're not going to go through 21 pages, but I would say that we could take this, we could take it just a bit at a time, perhaps. Would you say the first 5 pages, board members? Any comments, board
This
members?
is the one
That
from,
would be
so
fine.
this is the 2022,
This is 2022.
right? So you're asking us to
to take a look at the different sections, take a look at the comments. That's actually what we, to really discuss the comments. Do you agree with them? Do you want to add to them? Because these are comments that board members in 2022 made with regards to the board. Now, again, Ms. Esposito, and I know Mr. Thomas went out of the board in 2022, but that does not prohibit you from commenting. So therefore, what I'm going to do, because Ms. Peterson is, as an educator at the higher education level, I'm going to ask her to take this over and start us out.
Let me bring it up, because there's not enough copies, so I might bring up all
I have
that.
some additional.
We have
Anyone else? Anyone else need a copy? Yes, no?
Everyone has a copy?
Everyone has a copy?
Yes.
To my right, to my left? Okay.
So if you look at the, and this is the assessment, self-assessment,
Right.
and we look at the numbers that read average, so we can see it. So if you go to the right-hand column of each of the questions asked, if you can read page 1, you'll see the average numbers. So with a possible total of 4, you can look at most of our numbers are above, almost at a 4.0. The lowest is a 3.6 on page 1, 3.56 on page 1. If you flip to the next page, which is page 2, you see that some of our numbers are low, and I would say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I would say that you want to look at those averages that are 2.9, because that's a little bit low for us. And then you see the others on from 2.9 all the way up to a 3.9. So we fluctuate. So I think we need to look at those, and that's in terms of planning. Everything is broken down into different subgroups. So your first subgroup or your second is planning. How do we plan? And the second part is, how about you as a board member? What are you doing? And then you look at the comments. So I would suggest that we take a few minutes and look at the comments and look where we are low. Because the average, if you go from a 1 to a 4.0, the average is 2. But I don't say average, I would go up above that. Anything above a 2.9 is really feasible. And that's where we should be striving to make sure that our that we're in sync, and that we should be about a 3.0 or a 2.9. But we need room for improvement. Everyone on this board knows that there are ways that we can increase our involvement, increase our planning, and it's a time for us to reflect on how we move forward as a board. So it's an opportunity similar to those that know about strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities for growth, a SWOT analysis. This is the same. So if there's any comments that you want to look at, I tend to focus on the planning, and that might be one of the areas that we need to focus in on. Anyone else has opinion about that?
I have a question.
Yes.
So in the first column on, what is the scale here? Is it 1 through 4 or 0 through 4 that we're supposed to be?
Well, it's 1 through 4, and the 0 means not observable. So it's vital, very important, somewhat important, not important, and not observed. So you might be one that you weren't able to observe some of the planning or the policy.
Right.
So that's where you would put the 0.
So why are there 7, 5, 6s, and 7s in the first column?
Number of board members.
Number of board members that responded. Every board member doesn't have to respond to a question. So technically, there should have been 7 of us that responded. It really should have been 8 because.
I got you.
Remember? Yeah.
Somebody may have been absent or didn't participate.
And that's
But
correct.
it's based on the number of individuals participating. So for example, number 1, 7 of the board members felt that planning was vital. 1 thought it was very important. And then none of them thought that it was somewhat not important or not observed. And that's how, and you go down each one, and after you do it individually, then those scores are combined for you to have a total report.
Okay.
all right? So it's
Numbers in
done
here.
pretty much individually, the system.
Okay, so the
Yes.
numbers in here don't reflect wouldn't reflect my answer. You just poll, you kind of take votes for everybody or what?
That
Yeah.
you have to, when you do the surveys, just polling what you feel.
Right,
Right.
and then it's tallied.
And then also, more importantly, is the comments that are made to support how you vote, you thought. So if I felt that planning was essential or vital, then I should have a comment that specify why I believe planning is important. So if you want to take a look and then we can talk about the comments.
I got a question about a couple of comments.
Yes,
Number one and number five, we seem to be, one's a longer comment, one's a shorter comment. It basically said I have not seen the review of action plans to address district goals during my time as a board member. I know Ms. Claude talked about the culture climate survey with that. I know Rebecca Noel is talking about having the board meet and greet that will address that. And basically getting input from the community when we develop district goals and all our district policies. How can we improve that? And one, if you look at the second part of that question, it says we also need to monitor our process more than once a year. How do we establish that not only are we getting the community input for the goals, but we're also being held accountable to achieve the goals more than once a year?
What we did before is when we did the evaluation of the superintendent, we looked at, yes, you have board goals, but you also need to quarterly, or we said every 6 months. We started back in February, and I'm looking at Mrs. Moore because she was on that committee. So, and we were supposed to look accomplishment or work towards accomplishment of some of those board goals. Unfortunately, he was prepared. We did not do it.
Who did not?
Well, then-
We did not as a group. He presented to every board member in February, and we keep putting it off. So yes,
For
you have a package.
clarification purposes, you have
this
district,
document here,
you have district goals and you have board goals.
right,
They're two separate sets of goals. District goals is what I'm involved in, which you read every board meeting. Board goals is up to you as a collective body to decide what your goals are and what you want to accomplish throughout that particular year. District goals is what we have discussions about, in which I am involved, and those are the goals that are developed during our retreat in August with the assistance of the New Jersey School Board Association, Ms. Terry Lewis. Then she compiles those goals and sends them back to us, and then we put them out for the community. If I understand you correctly, you're trying to do some things differently this year, where you're trying to garner the input from the community and what their concerns may be in the development of district goals. So at this point, that's pretty much where we are, but I wanted to make sure there's a significant difference between district goals and board goals. May I also add, ladies and gentlemen, I wasn't sure of your timing in terms of your goals, but I have 3 parents here tonight, and I told them that we was going to start that process at 8 o'clock. It's 8:15, almost 8:20, and I need to go out there so that they know we're coming. So may I be excused?
yes, Dr. Poteet, I would say, and if you could ask their indulgence, because if we'll take just 15 minutes, we're until 8:30, ask them if they could be until, they would give us until 8:30.
I'll ask.
Okay, and while Dr. Poteet is asking, let me just say this with regards to district goals and our board goals.
Excuse me, Madam President,
Yes,
I understand that this is important, but if we have parents that are waiting for us, this can be done after that, can't it?
if the board is willing to do that,
I think
absolutely.
And they're very serious matters.
Yeah, I think if we have parents that are waiting for us,
That's fine.
I
Board
think we
members,
should
that's
honor that
fine.
timeline.
Sure, absolutely,
Would you like to pause this, Madam President?
Yes, if you will.
We can come back to it after executive session.
exactly.
So would you, we still have not covered, public
No,
comment.
we have not yet, so we do have to
So
go through
would you
that.
like to move through old business, new business, and have me go to public comment?
Yes,
Winslow Township Board of Education highly values the input of citizens in making the important decisions that affect the children of our community. We also believe in the rights of citizens to observe board meetings, to ensure that all our citizens have the opportunity to attend board meetings and offer comment, and to ensure that the board can conduct the important business of the district. We ask the speakers follow the guidelines for making public comment. The board secretary will recognize those individuals wishing to make comment. We'd ask that you follow the following procedures. All members of the public attending board meetings must treat each other and the board with respect. Please state your full name and address before you comment. Please limit your comments to 4 minutes. In the event we're unable to answer your questions this evening, please submit your questions to the Board of Education with your name, address, and telephone number where you can be contacted. Your question will indeed be answered within a reasonable time. And lastly, individuals offering citizen comment are not permitted to make personal attacks on any district employee, board member, other testifier, or member of the public.
board members, at this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve, moving into, public comment.
Julie Peterson move for approval to move into public comments.
Ms. Martin, second.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you. Ms. Boyle?
We have one that signed up, Ms. Shakima Bradford. Bradford.
Good evening. Can you hear
Good
me?
evening.
Good evening.
My name is Shakima Bradford. My address is 37 Rosamond Circle. I wanted to come because I wanted to bring something to your attention. I am a teacher who has over 14 years of experience. I actually work outside of the city. And for the last couple of weeks, I have been trying to find a job within the South Jersey community. I have attended a few different job fairs. No one was present for our district. I'm not sure if you guys were aware there were job fairs or not, but I do recall during tonight's meeting, there was a conversation regarding teachers and the fact that it's going to be hard to fill certain positions. Well, I have gone to various job fairs, and there are people who are out there who are certified and who are looking, but we need to make sure that we are more present at some of these events. Also, and I'm going to speak from my personal experience. Again, I work out of town, I work in the state. And I did submit my application. Again, I don't know how it goes. I submitted my resume to the superintendent's office based off what was online. And I did receive a call back, but it was, this is the date and this is the time that we have available. And that's it. There was no room for wiggle room when my students were taking state exams. So my thing is, if that happened to me and that's my experience and I'm willing, and I know that I've been to so many job fairs and there are a lot of people, there have been more than 40 people who have shown up with their resumes, and there's so many surrounding districts who are there, then what we're doing is limiting our chances of having people who are willing and excited about working and wanting to make a difference. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Boyle. Thank you very much. Julie noted.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, Mr.
I concur, and I thank you for that comment, because I know for a fact, even in my quest, I'm always getting Indeed job openings from other districts to let me know that we're hiring, and that's one of the things I don't see coming from Winslow Township. I get them from Deptford, I get them from Washington Township, and I want to know what can we do to increase our capacity to recruit.
So, Mr. Davis, good evening. Director of Human Resources. Advertiser of jobs.
Yes.
Seeker of recruiter of opportunities to provide people with employment in our district. Just maybe some background on what you do and what other options might be available to us, or why you think we're in this dilemma. I believe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mr. Thomas, if you want to explain this. Mr. Davis would be the person that would be able to answer your question.
Basically, Mr. Davis, you're doing a fine job, nobody's questioning your job or anything like that. What can we do to expand our reach? One, like I said, I get 2 or 3, advertisements from Indeed.com, from JobSearch.com, from Winslow Township, from Deptford, from other school districts, and I never get any from Winslow Township. Also, I wanted to know how far is our reach as far as going into different schools, not just Rowan and Stockton. I want to go into Lincoln. I want to go into Cheney. I want to go into Dale State. I want to have a contact where we can make a phone call and post our stuff on their website, put it in their personnel room, that type of outreach to make sure that we getting those who don't know about Winslow Township to get recruited into work for our district and help expand our education experience for our children.
And those schools are contacted. I do job fairs twice a year that we held here. And I probably do a mailing to 75, 80 or so different organizations. So not only does it go to all the colleges here in this area of New Jersey, I also target schools in Pennsylvania. I target Dell State and the local Lincoln, Cheney, etc. So things do go there during that time period when we have a big job fair. Other than that, I use schools.com that I'm constantly posting on for jobs. So anything that I put out goes to schools.com, which is where I also receive a lot of like from.
Do we go out to job fairs though? I know we have 2.
And in the past, I have, since the pandemic, I probably say not so much. A lot of schools are still doing virtual things, to be honest with you. So I do participate in a virtual job fair with TCNJ, which is where we tend to get a lot of candidates from. I have not gone to Rutgers, Rowan or Stockton recently, but I do send them, they're so close. A lot of times they come here, if you notice, even a lot of new hires. For the most part, that's where they're coming from, and we take their students. So I do send things to the schools. I have not been to their job fairs, their schools per se, since the pandemic.
But like you said, though, they're close, so they probably come
Right,
here.
so they'll have to come here.
Do you have the opportunity, or is there someone on your staff that has the opportunity to go a little bit farther out maybe to recruit?
And I've been to Montclair, Monmouth in the past. Unfortunately, a lot of times, a lot of those candidates tend to live up North Jersey. So even when I'm recruiting down here, or even when I go to TCNJ, if they live up top, I say, North Jersey, and they find a job, and I don't get them. So we've offered jobs to people, and a lot of times they have the luxury to pick where they want to go.
Do we have any flexibility? The young lady who spoke, she said that she was called for an interview, but you may have been out of the room. She was called for an interview, but it was like, you have to be here this date and time, and that was it, and she wasn't able to be there. So is there any flexibility as far as that?
And it depends, because a lot of times it's not just me, there's different principals. So a lot of times it has to fit into their schedule. So when we're doing the interviews, I let the principals who have openings, they dictate, because they have to kind of fit it in between their availability. So a lot of times that may be why there's set times, because that's what I can get the people here.
Okay.
So if we go back, there are instances where we may do a reschedule if we are still looking.
Okay.
But a lot of times it's just like a concert. Beyonce's only in town for one day. So,
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll be
yeah,
able to
so
get her
like I said,
rescheduled.
things pop back
Yeah.
up. I constantly post them, I'm not certain who asked the question, but whenever we have openings, like I said, they're constantly on the website. So I would definitely say keep an eye on our website, because if things start to pop up, they're always on the website. I do use schools.com. So anybody that's registered through that service, I think as soon as things are posted, they get an email. Because I know as soon as I put something up, things start popping up immediately. So I definitely think the way the system is set up is that it must send out alerts to the applicants on the server.
Okay.
But I'm constantly, like I said, posting on our website as well as schools.com. But you can think back and see it when we're done. After walking through, we can have a chat.
Mr. Davis, I have a question. Is the state still hold school districts with regards to recruiting outside of the state of New Jersey? Is it still that if you're going to work in New Jersey, you have to live in New Jersey, or at least be willing to move within a year?
Correct.
That's still
First
staying.
Act, it's still-
Okay, so if I'm in Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, sure, I could commute, but I want to move here.
Right.
So therefore, I have 1 year. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Someone else have
Is it possible to provide us with a list of different schools of your outreach that you daily, do outreach to?
Well, it's not a daily thing.
Well, I mean, when you do outreach.
Sure.
any other questions on the topic? Ms. Boyle?
There's nobody else who signed up this evening. Is there anybody in the waiting room?
No, there isn't.
Nobody signed up.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boyle. So therefore, board members, at this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve our adjourning the public comment portion of our meeting.
Julie Peterson move for approval of adjournment of public comment.
Ms. Martin, second.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. All in favor? Any nays? Thank you. Mr. Long?
Yes, in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, we will be adjourning into executive session on May 10th, 2023, as promised at 8:30. Of the items, 9 exceptions upon which we can enter into executive session. This one will be in accordance with item number 1, matters that by state statute are required to be kept confidential. The legal citation at issue is 18A:37-2, and the need for confidentiality is predicated upon student disciplinary matters. I would submit, although I'm not certain, that we could be upwards of 60 to 90 minutes before we accomplish the tasks that we need to before we come back. There may or may not be action taken after we recommence.
Thank you, Mr. Long. At this time, board members, I'm asking for a motion to approve our moving into executive session.
Julie Peterson moves for approval to move into executive session.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Moved by Ms. Peterson, second by Ms. Martin. Roll call, please.
Ms. Dreddick?
Yes.
Ms. Esposito?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Cannon? Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes,
Motion is carried.
thank you.